Hey, my fellow ADHDers, it's Shane G, your ADHD money coach, back here on ADHD-Dollars, the podcast that helps ADHD brains build a less stressful, healthier relationship with money to power your amazing ADHD life. Today, I want to talk about an area where ADHD is a superpower. And I'm so fond of saying that because it's so true. It's far too easy as an ADHDer to get into a spiral where all you focus on is what ADHD prevents you from doing. And first of all, don't you ever think that again because it's bullshit. ADHD doesn't prevent you from doing anything. It simply changes how you do it. And in many cases, it will let you get to a better outcome or further outcome than a neurotypical person. But we will have to do it differently, which is why 9 to 5s can be a challenge. Fortunately, this superpower I'm talking about is ADHDers' ability to be entrepreneurs, our ability to go out there, have an idea, and do something with it. Because we already do that. We already have an idea and start buying things for it. Cue a hobby you recently did that for. We already have an idea that we can't get out of our brain. And the only way to process it is to move it forward, whether we actually ever want to do anything long-term or serious with it at all. So ADHD is a superpower when it comes to entrepreneurship. And that's not just Shane G's theory. Forbes has done multiple articles on this. The first one that I saw was about a decade ago. I will link to it in the description. They've done others since. That first one focused on how ADHD was a superpower. The second one focused on ways that ADHD made people better entrepreneurs. So you've kind of got the why and the ways. Some of that overlaps. But let's look at a few of these traits that ADHD gives us that are superpowers. Now, remember, when something is a superpower, and you've seen this in every superhero movie ever, it doesn't make their life easier. It makes it harder. Because while they have this amazing, incredible power, they also have to manage it while doing everything else that a normal, in our case, neurotypical person has to do. That's the exact same situation us ADHDers are in. We get these special abilities, but on top of doing everything a neurotypical person has to do to exist in our society, to have clean clothes, housing, work, all of that, we have to do that plus manage these superpowers. And when not managed appropriately, they do have negative impacts on us. If you've ever watched, the X-Men toyed with this idea quite a bit when it showed the students in the school learning to use their abilities at a young age in a world that didn't understand. That's an ADHD person. So let's look at a few of these that relate in the entrepreneurship context. The first is hyper-focus. So you've done it. You got hyper-focused on something. It might not have been important to the world. It might not have been important to anyone else, but it was important to you. It was of interest to you. You zoned in. You did it. You knocked it out. You spent however long on it. And when you looked back up, you had one of those feelings that's similar to in the movies when someone comes out of a coma and they go, "What year is it?" We've all done it. And in some cases, it's detrimental. We missed appointments. We missed plans with friends. We missed work. We missed eating. It can have negative impacts. But now let's look at that through an entrepreneurship lens. It's you. You're a business of one. You're a company of one. You're a person of one, right? As an entrepreneur, solopreneur. You eventually can get more people, but that's how it starts out. It's generally just you. Hyperfocus is your superpower to get you over the humps when you need to. And think about it. When does our hyperfocus kick in? When it's forced urgency, because we have to do it now. Things that get us over humps that might otherwise cause neurotypical people to just stop. For us, The thing that would cause them to stop is the thing that finally gives us urgency, forcing us into a hyper-focus mode, and we plow through it, plow through the obstacle. The second is creativity. ADHDers are idea machines because our brains can never focus on one thing. As fast as an idea comes into our brain and we get excited about it, 5 more banging on the door. A better way to describe it, if you're listening and don't have ADHD, is there's not one door, there's 200 with one or many ideas banging on to get through. That's probably a better way of how it feels. And what we have to do is control the ideas so we can pick one to execute. So, hyperfocus, creativity, adaptability. Change doesn't scare us because we generally can't focus on something long enough for it to become a habit. So change is what we know. Change is the norm. Our brain is changing every single minute in what it's focusing on, and then jumping back, and then jumping forward. And then it becomes like the Wonkovator that can go diagonal and left, right, and up, down, and all over the place. Mine, I think, just transversed 3 different dimensions and came back. And I'm still trying to make sure I know where I'm at on my podcast. But adaptability and the ability to pivot quickly is natively built into us because we can't bring ourselves to stay zoned in on one thing long enough. But that is one of the biggest traits that an entrepreneur has to be able to do, particularly in today's day and age where technology is changing and advancing things so rapidly and so quickly. And finally is rejection sensitivity. And this is the one that I think surprises people the most. And to be completely honest, surprised me the first time I heard it. Why would our sensitivity to rejection make us better at entrepreneurship, not worse? When, like, I took entrepreneurship in my MBA, I had to come up with an idea for a business. I went through 4 ideas before I realized it doesn't matter what idea I send the professor, he's going to poke holes in it. Because that's one of the most critical skills of entrepreneurship is you are going to get rejected again, 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 and again. And the same people that reject you are going to later want to be your cheerleaders saying about how great the idea is when it takes off. Because to be in entrepreneurship, you have to be a level of crazy, which in a positive lingo is called visionary, right? Whether someone is visionary or crazy is often determined by the outcome. In many ways, those words become synonyms. So you would think that with rejection sensitivity, it would stop ADHDers, but here's where it becomes a superpower. It can stop us, but if channeled correctly, it gives us an immense amount of customer-centric thinking because we become very empathetic, intuitive to what the customer could be thinking because we've been that customer in that situation, worried about getting rejected for something that maybe you can't even get rejected for, which can lead us to create extremely customer and people first mindsets. And as our world shifts more and more towards new levels of automation opened by AI, this ability to create these moments with customers will further stick out and differentiate people and really could become a great, great superpower to entrepreneurs. Now, there's some other things with us cutting people off and whatnot that we'll have to manage, but that's a discussion for another time. Now, let's pull all of this together and say, what does it really mean? What it means is we don't have to be beholden to a 9-to-5 or only a 9-to-5. We can tap into this entrepreneurship. And one of the beautiful things about living in the 2020s is a large portion of Americans today have some type of side gig, which means it's much more accepted than it ever was. And it no longer is a choice between, do I work a day job? Do I work my 9-to-5? Or do I go and be entrepreneurial? It's now an and for many people. And for many companies, they're realizing that people who do this skill up in a way that people who don't do not. And so it actually can be to their benefit. So let's talk about how you can step into this world with a side gig. I've got 10 side gigs coming for you that are ADHD friendly. But before we get there, let's talk about what actually makes something ADHD friendly. And no, it's not just because Shane G told you, right? There is actually criteria here, and I think it's going to make a lot of sense for you. So let's look at it. Number one, short feedback loops. So something where you do it, you're done, and you get feedback. Now, keep in mind that feedback doesn't mean you get a call from someone going, oh my goodness, this is the best I've ever had, blah, 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 and like talking up your ego. The feedback could be that you did the task, payments in your account within 48 hours. At the end of the day, when you're an entrepreneur, when you're doing a side gig, the best feedback is money in the bank, right? Getting paid. Now, most of these types of side gigs that you can get into easily operate on platforms, which means there's apps or websites that helps you get your clients. And then usually there's also the ability for you to review them to review you. So there's two forms of feedback that you get right off the bat. And that's the second thing that makes a side gig ADHD friendly is it has an existing infrastructure, an existing platform, an existing what I like to call business operating system built in. These types of platforms, I'm talking about Airbnb, Rover, Uber Eats. And again, I'll talk about the list of things that are actually friendly, but these are just examples of platforms at this point that take care of all of the business side of it. So you notice we're saying that ADHDers are great at being entrepreneurs. That's not the same as being great at business operations. Business operations is I need to do accounting. I need to have IT. I need to have HR. I need to have legal. I need to have a website. That's business operations. And there are parts of that ADHDers are great at. There are parts of it that we are not inherently going to be the best at without really putting in a lot of work. So the second thing that I like to call out after short feedback loops is a platform that gives you customers and gives you what I call a business operating system where a lot of that business overhead and administrative stuff is kicked in so you can actually do the core thing. The second is creative control. And this directly correlates to why a business operating system or platform is so important. Because that frees you to be creative. That frees you to have full creative control, right? Now, you might argue, oh, well, if I'm using a platform, I'm kind of limited. Well, not really. Let's say you're using Rover to walk dogs. You still can give yourself a cool business name, a cool logo. You're still picking the routes you're taking the dogs on, right? All they're really doing is finding you customers, giving you an easy way to communicate with them, putting everything in one place, handling payments, and putting money in your account. So there's still a lot of creative control there. And the less that you have to do with all that business operation stuff, the more time you have to be creative. The third is flexibility. So ADHDers, we got a lot going on. We can hyper-focus, unhyper-focus. We need the ability to be flexible. And particularly if you're doing this on top of a 9-to-5, again, it can offer a lot of benefits, offer a lot of variety that your 9-to-5 isn't, give you a creative outlet. But you need it to be flexible. And that's why, again, if we go back to having a business operating system, you, on most of these, choose which individual requests you accept or reject, giving you a lot of control there. Pick up more when you want to, pick up less when you don't. The next one is built-in variety. So it might seem like, oh, well, I'm always walking a dog. How's that variety? Well, it's a different dog with a different client at a different house. If you're interacting with the client, there's some social. Interacting with a dog, if you do it the way my husband does, it's very social. And so what you're probably starting to see in this list is you are getting paid to get dopamine hits. If you go look at my episode on free dopamine hits or my TikToks on free dopamine hits, we are looking for jobs that give you dopamine hits. but we're getting you paid for them, which is another dopamine hit when you look at your bank account. And which brings us to the final item on the list, clear wins. You know when a task is done. So a side gig that gives the person, I don't know, a year to return something or request a revision. And I'm exaggerating a bit with a year, but there are side gigs out there where you make a physical product. If you sell it on a platform that requires you to honor a 1-year return window, well, that's not really a clear win because, yeah, you got the money, but there's this nagging feeling that rejection could come later. And that's triggering our rejection sensitivity in a negative way. All right, I've been yapping long enough. Hopefully, you're still with me because that is really good information. But now I want to share with you 10 ADHD-friendly side gigs. Now, I do want to say the reason that I didn't just jump into these 10 side gigs and I went through my spiel I just gave you about what makes a side gig ADHD-friendly is some of these side gigs, the minute I say it, you're going to go, absolute no, absolutely no. And if you go look at my TikToks, there's some that was their comments, and they had very valid reasons for either physical limitations, past bad experiences with something related to the side gig, allergies, things like that. You're going to see that. Also, part of what makes a side gig work isn't just the ADHD component. A side gig could be great for ADHD, but awful for elements of your personality or your interests, right? If you're a cat person, dog walking probably isn't going to work. That has nothing to do with your ADHD. That's just you personally. So these 10, think of them as a checklist where, yes, you can sit there and go, ooh, I could do that one. I could do this one. But also think of it more as examples to get your mind in the gear of thinking about things that could be side gigs. So if you are at the end of these 10 and you're like, Shane, you let me down, none of these are going to work for me, then go back to what makes a good side gig. And we've started to open the pathway in your brain to look at the world and see places you can make money by leveraging your ADHD. That's the real goal of this episode. All right, let me go through these 10. Gonna go through them a little bit quickly because I have a download available. Check the description for the URL where you can download a list of these 10, giving you more details. But rattling off 10 things and keeping ADHD interest can be a challenge. So we're just going to kind of churn through these and then wrap this episode up with a nice little bow. So the first one is, and I've mentioned this in a few of the examples, dog walking. So again, paid dopamine. You're getting physical activity. You're getting outside. You're getting social interaction, right? So, and again, we've got Rover. We've got Facebook groups. We've got, there's another app if you want to build your own business that, Walkies it's called. It's the one that I use with my pet sitter. So you've got your operating system, you've got these dopamine hits built in, and it's fully structured. They request dates, you accept it if you can. If you can't, you can't. All right. So first one, dog walking. Second one, online tutoring. So again, if you've got physical limitations, you don't leave the house, all that kind of stuff, you go online and you tutor people. There's a bunch of flat platforms. We've got Wyzant, WYZANT, OutSchool. You can advertise locally. Search. There's some other platforms out there. I know there's Varsity Tutors. And so I've done this myself. You've got short, structured lessons. You pick the subject and you control the hours. People request it. You say, I'm available. I'm not available. I focused on Excel tutoring, Excel coaching, as you might want to call it. But here's the beauty of this. If you're sitting there and you don't feel like you have a skill that you could tutor in very easily, well, that's fine. There are sites out there where people will pay just to have a conversation with a native English speaker to help them learn English. So this really is a no skill one. If you're the majority of my audience, that is English speaking. If you have a specific skill, particularly ones applicable to the business world or helping people get through college courses, you can charge even more. The next one is online user testing. So this is where you literally go to a website that's either already out there or a major redesign, and you click around. And in a lot of cases, they have you just speak out loud and are recording your mic of what you're saying and what you're thinking. So you don't even got to write up a bunch of notes. Some of them do, but it's short focused. You get immediate feedback and payout. And it's variety. Each site's different, or it's a different part of the site, or a different thing you're focusing on, and you know exactly how long it's going to be. We've got built platforms for this. We've got usertesting.com. We've got Try My UI, which I believe just has rebranded, but if you type in Try My UI, it'll still come up. And again, you can just type in get paid for online user testing, online website testing, and find other options as well. The next one is a virtual assistant. This one's a little more opaque, but really any skill that you have or enjoy, again, creating Excel sheets for someone, making cold calls for someone, helping someone organize their email, helping someone answer a customer support email, helping someone do bookkeeping. It's almost limitless, but anything related to a business or someone's personal life, booking travel, managing some money, you can be a virtual assistant in. And the reason this one's great is there's a variety of tasks. Now, I do recommend you narrow down to a few. One, it helps you develop a brand. Two, it avoids you getting a little too scattered. But give yourself enough variety. You've got flexible hours and you've got clear deliverables. Generally, it's, hey, I need this done. Here's how much I'll pay you. Or I'm hiring you each month at the end of the month to do my bookkeeping entries in QuickBooks. What exact items you do can make this more or less ADHD friendly and more or less interest in you. So just pay attention to that and make sure it aligns. Number 5, cleaning. We all know ADHDers, we can get hyper focused on cleaning, but cleaning gives us a dopamine boost from moving, an immediate dopamine boost or hit as we go around and clean each and every surface and room and counter. And it's generally pretty flexible scheduling because you just find a time when it's not going to inconvenience the person. The other thing here that some people forget about is this isn't just about cleaning someone's home. You can clean short-term rentals. There's a website called Turno, Turno, that you list yourself as a cleaner. You set a rate, and you can, if you're in an area with a lot of tourists, you can clean short-term rentals. You also can clean businesses, which generally that happens after your standard 9 to 5 hours. Graphic design, for those that like taking the creativity in that way, there's a lot of novelty to that. Each project's different. You've got a clear start and stop, and you're in control. You're in the driver's seat. Number 7, transcription. Again, AI is doing a lot of this, but there's still work available for humans. In some cases, it's you helping an AI get better at transcription. We've got sites like rev.com, Scribe, Go Transcript, and it lets you pick up the jobs you want for the amount of hours that you can zone into this. Project-based, when you're done, and you get paid. And one of those things that maybe you pick 4 or 5 of these jobs that are due within 3 days, you get yourself situated into a hyper-focus mode and knock them all out. The next one is freelance writing or content writer. I do not have the greatest command of the English language in written form. I'm much better oratorically speaking. But if you are one that is really good at getting it written, you can pick your interest. You can pick your type of writing, whether it's blog posts, emails, copy for a website, scripts, really whatever you want. And there's a number of websites out there. Your general marketplaces like Fiverr and Upwork have a lot of opportunities. And then there's also some freelance writing specific ones. You also may be able to do this on the side if there's a local web design or a search engine optimization business. Those are very writing heavy. Kind of related but different is social media manager. So this one, no 2 posts are the same. You have to keep changing how you post as the audience evolves and as the message lands or doesn't. And you're engaging with people. So you're getting a level of social engagement. Again, you can pick here where you focus, or in business, as we say, what your niche is. Are you only doing TikToks? Are you only doing hotels? Are you only doing car dealerships? Car dealerships work well because they tend to be small businesses that don't quite need a full-time person to do this. But these are really good opportunities to do it. And number 10, there's kind of two takes to this, but short-term rental manager or short-term rental host. So if you have space in your house, I do. I have a third floor with 2 bedrooms and a bathroom that I do not actively use. I rent it out on Airbnb. So I am a short-term host. If you have space, and big misconception that you have to have a whole extra house. You don't. You can just have a room. Airbnb allows that. If there's enough demand where you are, you can make money from it. I do close to 15 grand a year renting out that third floor of my house. And yes, they have to come through my house to do it. Some of you are going to say, oh, that's absolutely crazy. Then don't do that. Do the other version of this. And there are people out there with second, third, fourth homes, collection of investment properties that don't want to manage it. So not only do I host mine, I'm also a short-term rental manager for 2 owners across 3 properties, spanning 2 states, where I handle all of the listing updates. I handle all of the messages. I handle the pricing. Now I use a tool that does it using an algorithm and handles all of that. And I charge them a monthly fee for it. So, a lot of people hear Airbnb, oh, I don't have an investment property. Well, you don't have to. You can rent out a room. And if you don't have that, you can help other people manage it. In terms of finding ways to do this, Airbnb kind of has a marketplace for it. The reason I say kind of is it's really geared towards existing hosts that want to help others, a little bit less towards just people who want to do this but don't host themselves per se. Fiverr, Upwork, all have areas that you can advertise this. So this one is a little bit less of if you're Airbnb in your own property, built-in business operating system, built-in platform handles everything for you. If you're managing it for others, there is structure to it. Once you find a client and get linked in, there's some platforms you can list it on, like Fiverr and Upwork that I've mentioned, but it's not quite as built-in packaged business operating system. So this maybe isn't the first one you want to try out. Again, if you're doing it as a host, it's absolutely great. If you have a room that you barely use and you don't want to lose feasibility of it, like for your current function, get a Murphy bed. I've been hosting on Airbnb for over 6-7 years now. So I know a lot about this. I've done it across 2 different properties I've owned. I always lived in it, but I've moved houses. So I know a lot about that one, but just call that out that is one that it's not quite as fully business in a box ready to go. All right, let's wrap this all up with a few safeguards to put in place, right? We still have ADHD. We have to channel it in the right way. So it's a superpower, and our superpowers are shining, not dragging us down. So the biggest thing, pick one, scale it up. I know the urge is going to be there. I have jokingly said that I collect side gigs. I currently have 4/5, depending on how you count it, and then a 6th one that I'm all set up for, but I'm not marketing myself to others. I'm just doing it for myself, or if a friend happens to mention they need the services, actually working on ways that I might scale that up. Essentially to some of people in this audience in the future. But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. Second one, use systems. If this is your first time ever doing a side gig, pick one that has the full platform business in a box, as I've been calling it, or business operating system. And then over time, you can get to ones where there's less structure, and eventually you realize that you really can do any side gig because you learn how to use the right tools, technology, checklists, processes, systems to create your own business in a box. Know your capacity. Us ADHDers are not good at saying no because we have an opportunity to do something. When that presents itself to us, all of the ideas all of our creativity is unleashed and we get a massive surge of dopamine and we say, yes, I've done this many a times. It's how I kind of collected some side gigs. But what's important is to manage them. So it doesn't really matter whether you have 1 or 500 side gigs, because I can find you someone that has 1 side gig that takes up 20 extra hours a week, meaning they've got their 40 hours base job, 20 extra hours, they're at 60 hours a week. Probably the max you're going to do on a consistent basis comfortably. I can find you someone else that's doing 200, that's still only averaging 20 extra hours a week. Know your capacity, know how these different side gigs operate, know the seasonality of it, know when they're going to spike, when they're not, right? So my Airbnb stays spike in summer when a amusement park near me is open. I get people all throughout the year, but that's when it spikes, which is when some of my other side gigs slope down a little because people are taking vacations. So there's less big projects going on for me to do some of my IT consulting on the side and those types of things. Think slow burn, not bonfire. You don't got to go in all at once. And remember, whatever you do go in on, it can take time to scale these up. If you look at my podcast and look at views and things and me scaling up my coaching business, this is going to take months for me to actually get somewhere or see if this can go somewhere, right? You all have been great so far, and I'm excited to continue on the journey. But just to bring this all together where we started, ADHD is a superpower. If that's the first time you've heard me say it, it certainly and surely will not be the last. We just have to channel it correctly, and side gigs is a wonderful way to do it. And one of the things I think some people misunderstand is that, oh, someone taking a side gig no longer likes their 9 to 5. That's not necessarily true, particularly when you have ADHD. Your 9 to 5, you could still love, but the reality is it's not changing dramatically enough to let you tap your creativity. The side gig gives you a channel or an outlet for that actually starts to make you like and appreciate your 9 to 5 job better. It also can be an avenue for you to have greater control over your life and your schedule, which can be wonderful for some of the sleep and time blindness issues that ADHDers face. So many reasons you might want to explore this. By all means, this is not me saying every ADHDer is suited for side gigs. I'm saying ADHD of itself has traits that can make someone be very good at entrepreneurship and very good at side gigs. There are other elements too about your personality, about your interests, about how you want to spend your time, about how much time you have to spend that also come into play. If you would like some personalized help figuring out the right side gig for you, whether side gigs are for you, and guidance in getting it going, check out my website, shaneg.coach, and schedule a side gig starter call with me. I'll also put a link directly to the side gig starter call in the description of this podcast so that you can check that out. If the podcast player you're using doesn't make those links easily clickable or copyable, check out this episode on ADHDdollars.com, podcast.com. Sorry, ADHDdollarspodcast.com. Until next time, it's Shane G signing off.